Welcome to Complete Edition, the podcast between a PlayStation Trophy Hunter and an Xbox Achievement Hunter. This is episode 39. I'm your host, Compulsive Nerd, and I'm joined by AJ. How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well. I was feeling kind of stressed recently, but everything's going relatively well, I feel.
Yeah, dude. And since the last time we recorded, you were kind of under the weather. And then the day after we recorded and uploaded, I got sick. And so I've recovered from that and like kind of in a good place. So it's like there's a lot going on. But there's something I wanted to tell you, which is like, dude, I have a lot more free time this semester than I thought. Like I'm in one class and it's pretty slow. Like we're covering 3 chapters the entire semester, and in previous schooling, like it was like 3 chapters a night, you know? Like it was crazy. And so this is going to be a big change of pace, and so I'm like I have a lot more time to game. I've been gaming a lot actually. Like a lot. But yeah, have you been playing much?
No, it's been annoying in a way because so much has come out. Like, it's ridiculous. I feel like even if I was devoting all my time pretty much to playing games, I'd still not be able to play everything that I want to. I was actually listing it. I was like, so Hogwarts Legacy is like imminent. It might even be out right now, depending on time zones or whatever, but there's that, there's GoldenEye, there's Hi-Fi Rush, there's Disco Elysium, which I was playing. There's that new SpongeBob game I really liked, Battle for Bikini Bottom, the remaster. So
Yeah.
the Cosmic Shake is kind of like a successor to that, which is really interesting to me. Then there's obviously Dead Space, the original Dead Space, very near and dear to me, one of my favorite games of all time. And then I also, on that like same note, I still want to check out the Callisto Protocol, despite some of the sort of negativity and disappointment that
Same here.
seems to have happened with that game. So I kind of want to do like a double bill of like Dead Space, Remake, and Callisto. So that's so many games that, I mean, all of them except for Disco Elysium have come out like in basically the past like month and a half. It's what, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that I'm interested in that have come out so recently. So yeah, there's no way I've been able to keep up. Also, I'm still really into chess, so like with that and how busy I am now, yeah, it's not really been possible to play that many things.
It's not jiving together.
I've played some stuff, but yeah, so I think things will hopefully ease up by the end of this month. To some extent, my like big report should be like submitted in like a week or two. It'd be really good if that ends up being actually the case. And then, I mean, the problem is then I have to do like a Viva assessment for it. So I have like a meeting that's like a discussion based on my report where they sort of quiz me on it and check that I understand like the theory and explain what I did in terms of experiments, stuff like that. So that's going to be stressful as well, and preparing for that is going to be kind of intense because my project spans quite a few different areas and I've kind of only, I don't know, dabbled in them, I guess. So I need to kind of understand them with more depth than just like being surface level on it. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to be like, we finished an experiment that's going in the report, but we need to do all the analysis for it. So I feel like I'm almost there. Like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, kind of. And after it's over, I'm really tempted to just like book 2 weeks off and just like chill and play games and do whatever and watch films and I don't know, maybe go somewhere, travel somewhere or something. But yeah, so not had much time, but feeling good. Like I was feeling, I think last episode, because I was feeling ill as well, I was feeling quite stressed and a bit negative. And then also it was like, oh, I've still got like so much ahead of me. I think I'd only written about 20 pages at that point, which wasn't too bad, but it was kind of only like halfway. Now I'm at like 42, which is now like beyond where it should be in a sense, because I think they want like 40 pages. But it's like at this point I feel a bit better about it all, despite the fact that the deadline is like really looming at this point for me. But yeah, I've not had as much time as I'd like, but I'm happy with what I've played, and I feel like I'm slowly getting back into it more. This weekend I actually played some games, so that was nice.
That is nice. Yeah, at the end of February, like whenever you think you might be slowing down there or speeding up, depending on how you look at it, like I'll be headed out to Houston for like a Discord meetup, and that'll be pretty fun. But my gaming time will go down. But yeah, like getting to get out, a little bit of vacation after you're done. That sounds real good. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what got into me. I just kind of got back into a routine, and then I started making easy dinners, and I was like, just rolling. And so I was like maximizing my game time. And after work, I was gaming, and like I was just doing everything. So gaming just happened to work out for me this time. And despite that happening, I didn't play that much. Like I played 3 games, and so I have a lot to talk about, but it's only in 3 different games. But today is February 6th, and tonight at 11 Central Time in America, Hogwarts Legacy comes out, and I'm going to be playing the hell out of that. Probably going to stay up late playing that. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym in the mid-afternoon. But like, I am so excited for this game, dude. Like, I took these quizzes online. I know what school I'm going to be in. I know like if they let you choose your wand, I know like how I'm going to build it. It's like super, super exciting. And so I'm looking forward to that tonight. Like, everything I've done today, just cleaning and like preparing just for tonight, like getting my homework done. I could read ahead and just be like, get out of class at 8 p.m., get home, eat, sit down, be ready for that timer to hit 11, and then fire up that app. I'm really, really excited. So I am, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I've not really watched much.
Me either, but I saw today
Hogwarts Legacy, so I'm interested.
I am too, but I asked a friend today, and he said like most places are giving it a 9 out of 10, and I'm like, dude, because I
got an 86. I think it had an 86 at some point.
That's pretty good, and I was a little bit nervous because I actually regret it. Nah, I don't regret it, but I kind of justified myself. I did buy the deluxe because it technically doesn't launch for like 3 more days or something like that, and it's $10 more to get the game 72 hours early. And I just was like, that's like $3 a day. And for me, I don't have work. So I have class tonight, and then I don't have work Tuesday or Wednesday. So I'm like, 2 of the 3 days I don't have work. I could play for like 13 hours. Like I literally have nothing to do. Why not just buy it early? And so I feel a little scummy for supporting that kind of behavior of launching early, but I mean, really
for me, reason would be there's so much else to play. Like I feel like for me I'd be tempted, but like even if I had a lot of free time right now, like it wouldn't get my priority, I don't think. And also I'd be like, well, why not just play like something else in the meantime, just because there's so much, like it's so packed right now.
Dude, I feel it. And the thing is like I have Callisto, and I'm going to talk about it later, but I've completed Dead Space, and after I did, I was like, yeah, I want to play Callisto, like this moment. But then I looked ahead, and I'm like, man, it's like I have less than a week to get the platinum or to finish Callisto, and I really just didn't want to put that pressure on myself because I have been looking forward to Hogwarts Legacy for quite a while.
Okay.
And I've seen just small little things. Like I got to see a character flying around on a broomstick and around Hogwarts, and I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Like I don't need to see anymore. Like I just want to explore and do this, like play this game,
Yeah, I feel like you could get Callisto done in like 2 days, though, right?
I think so. Like
it's like
I heard it's like
you do 1 playthrough, I think.
Yeah,
or 2.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's like 8 hours or something like that, 8 to 12.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of short. And so I'm thinking about doing it after Hogwarts, and that'll like open up. But I don't know if I'm gonna platinum Hogwarts.
Yeah, you did it in the wrong order as well. I feel like you should do Callisto and then Dead Space, because everyone says Dead Space is better. So it's good to like go from like the worst one to the better one, I feel like. Whereas if you go from the better one to the worst one, it's like, oh, I wish I was just playing Dead Space right now,
Yeah, it's interesting how I've mentally prepared myself for that. Because of that reason, everyone says it's worse. I'm going to be comparing it, but I don't think that I'm going to hate it, because it is it is like, what did it score, like mid 70s or something like that? It's like, I just have to understand that it's not as good, but it is still in this survival horror genre. And like, I'm excited to see, because honestly, I think that the Callisto Protocol's story will probably be better than Dead Space's was. But Dead Space wasn't really about the story. There isn't cutscenes. It's like all action, no filler, like it is go, go, go. And I think that Callisto, at least from what I've seen of Callisto, it looked like it had cutscenes, like cinematic built cutscenes. And so,
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical just because I feel like neither will have a great story, and I feel like the world and setting of Dead Space seems a lot better.
oh
And I
yeah,
consider that to be like
the
if you're gonna
story.
do a minimalist story, which I think both do, I feel like you want like the lore and the like the story behind like the monsters and all of that. Like you want that to be like
Yeah.
what you take away from it. And I feel like I got this vibe from Callisto ever since I first saw it, that it's like Dead Space again, but the enemies aren't as interesting, is always what like I kept thinking that, and I feel like it's never convinced me. Although, where it's like they're like necromorphs, but they're like a bit more like zombies, because they're not quite
Right.
like necromorphs. It's
I don't
it's
know if I've
like
seen any of the enemies from
yeah, well they
Callisto.
just I mean it's like you can't, I don't know, maybe you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice, but I don't
Yeah.
know, like that. So to me, I feel like Dead Space, maybe not narratively, but like world wise, is more
Oh yeah.
interesting probably. But I don't
Oh
know.
my god, dude. The unbelievable like lighting in that game is just, it made everything. It made everything so awesome. Dude, I actually kind of just want to, can we just jump right into talking about Dead Space right now?
Yeah, sure. Let's just be like what we're playing, and you go with Dead Space.
Yeah, cuz Dead Space, man. Oh man. Okay, so like my favorite playthrough of the game, I played the game 3 times. 3 playthroughs to get my platinum, and it was medium first, medium difficulty, and I was kind of using that playthrough to experience the game blind, which was kind of awesome because I ended up getting all the collectibles that I needed, blind playthrough, and I completed all the side quests, which, by the way, top tier, only 3 side quests in the whole game. That's all a game needs sometimes. It doesn't need more than that. It was just like little things you could do on the side to extend the gameplay just a little, like maybe an hour or two, and then move on. And then on like subsequent playthroughs, I didn't even do them because it was like they're not that necessary. But point is like I did my first playthrough blind, but I did kind of play with all of the weapons because there's trophies for getting 30 kills with every weapon. And so I was learning how to use the weapons and finding out which ones were my favorite. And then my second playthrough was the plasma cutter only playthrough. Again, it was New Game Plus, plasma cutter only, and like maxing out everything. And that's all that playthrough was. And it was, again, really fun. Didn't mind replaying it at all. And then my third playthrough, my favorite playthrough, the scariest playthrough. Despite playing it 2 times before, the scariest playthrough is impossible because you are so nervous about dying all the time. And like I actually did die 1 time in the whole playthrough, but I like if you do it right, you can quit to the main menu, and then you can load your last save and it doesn't void anything. So I died 1 time through the whole entire thing, and it was an accident, which I've had people be like, "Oh, is any death on purpose?" It's like, no, but I stepped on a trap, and because I was walking backwards for shooting a necromorph, and no enemy ever killed me during the entire playthrough. It was just a trap that I stepped on.
Is
But
impossible in this permadeath then?
yes, it is permadeath. When
Okay.
you die,
So it's not like the original Dead Space. Interesting.
and there's only 1 save slot
Yeah.
when you're on impossible, and when you die, you can choose to restart the game or to start the game on your previous save on hard mode. And
Did you find? Sorry to interrupt. Did you
no, go ahead.
find the difficulty harder? Have you played the original Dead Space?
I have not played the original.
Okay,
I feel
so
sad
never
about
mind.
that.
Okay, so
But
I was gonna say the original Dead Space on Impossible is the easiest Dead Space of the three.
Oh,
I did it when I did it in like 2010, 2009, maybe. I did Impossible with only the plasma cutter because I was like, I mean, first of all, the plasma cutter is amazing, like incredible. Like it's
one of
considered
the
like a
best.
sidearm, but it's just so good anyway.
The
And if you
best.
fast track upgrades, it's actually like a viable strategy. But I stacked it with my plasma cutter only playthrough, and it didn't have the permadeath thing, I don't think, and I don't think I died. I think it was fine. Like I
Yeah.
so I feel like I'm more interested in it again now that I know it's got that like permadeath factor.
Yeah.
But I never found it in the original game very tense because I thought it was quite easy. I think Dead Space 2, its like permadeath thing was really tough. I think it was cool because on the 360 it came on 2 discs, and I think you got 3 save slots on that difficulty, and so it wasn't like fully permadeath. But that game's long. That game's longer than the first game. And you had, if you played it on 360 rather than PS3, you got an extra save because it would never kick you back to like the first disc. So the point where you swap discs became like a fourth save slot because once you got to that point, it was like its own save point. I don't know why. I guess it was because it it like must save the game at that point, so it knows when you swap. Because otherwise, if you took the disc out, it would just be like, "What the fuck? You know, where are you?"
Yeah.
So it has to save between discs, so it wouldn't ever kick you back, which I always thought was really cool. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but it's really cool.
That is
Um,
really cool.
as like an extra like benefit. But yeah, the first game I never found too tough, but I found it like so well balanced at the same time. Like maybe it's like a little easy, but it's really fair for the most part. I think horror games do a bad job of being fair because they want to like shock you. So there's a lot of like cheap bullshit that tends to get put in horror games. Whereas I feel like Dead Space never truly had that. There might be a couple of moments that I'm forgetting, perhaps, but even like the guys that the guys with the explodey sacks, right, on their
Yes. Oh
arms.
my gosh, those are not. They're really not that hard.
Well, they move slowly and they shriek really loud, right? Is the
Yeah.
thing like whenever they see you. So it's like they've thought about gameplay balancing in a way that makes it like fun and tense, but also really fair. So yeah, I
Dude,
kind of love the gameplay flow of that game.
the gameplay is incredible, and not only that, but like some of the design choices really are so smart because there was times where like some of the necromorphs will be quiet when they're behind you. They will not make sound. They will like you might be able to hear like a breath or two, but they won't be like I'm coming behind you. It's like I would be just chilling, and then all of a sudden I would see their like pincers in my screen, and I'd be like, "Son of a bitch, there's one behind me!" And then it would scream. It didn't like make its noises until it was close enough to where it's like, "Oh, that is scary as hell." And I love that. I don't think I've ever seen any enemies kind of do that. And so there was if you didn't hear them pop out of the vent, then sometimes they could sneak up on you. And I really, really love that. But using stasis on those explosive ones really, really helped. And you used a lot of terminology when explaining it. Is like the best way to describe this is kind of like it's not that hard. It's more fair than anything. It's just being careful. Like that's all you have to do on impossible difficulty. I don't think it's that hard. Like 5 or 6 out of 10 difficulty. You do take a little bit more damage. The enemies do take more damage, but it's like if you're just being careful and you it's hard to explain this because I think that if you did this for the first time, like you did impossible plasma cutter only, then you're going to have a harder time. But if you did it like I did, where I had everything out of the way and I had played the game twice previously, so I knew what I was doing,
Yeah.
and I had strats, man. Like I was using
So,
telekinesis a lot.
yeah, survival horror games have like they always do a good job. Well, not always. A lot of the time they do a good job where you'll like, especially this game because it's really memorable. Even the combat
Super
encounters.
memorable.
So you like, if you play Impossible on like a second or a third playthrough, you already know you're like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna get to this room and there's like 3 enemies that burst out like here, here, and here. So I'm gonna like I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do, like, you can already plan it out quite easily and reliably. Yeah, I think that's really cool. I mean, maybe to make it harder, it would be interesting if they switch up like the spawns, or they like have some randomness associated with it. But it's also really cool to have like that planning aspect on a further playthrough. Also, those explodey guys. I mean, I used to love where you like shoot the explodey sack off
Yes.
and then telekinesis it and then throw it at like a group of enemies. That's always
Yeah.
really cool.
Right at the beginning of the game, I was really low. You know, you don't have your upgrades. You're kind of low on ammo. You're like really figuring it out. And so there was a moment where like there was a couple necromorphs and I shot one's leg off. And then I was like, you know, I telekinesis it and I waited for another one to come up. And there was a explosive canister next to them. And I like blew them up with one bullet. And it was just like, that's how you conserve ammo. Like that's how you use your resources. And then I ran around and I found another like stasis recharge. And I was like, you gotta really like focus on strats and like doing what you can to like maximize your survival like inventory or whatever. But the coolest thing is I've been listening to podcasts like spoiler casts and podcasts about people playing Dead Space, and I learned this thing that the devs did. And this is something that runs in the background. And you were talking about knowing enemy locations. Now, I think they spawn a couple extra enemies on Impossible, and they have different locations. But there are still times in story beats like, oh yeah, I'm in this decontamination room. You press the button, boom, enemies spawn. You know, like that some of that stuff stays the same throughout the playthroughs. But there's this meter that runs in the background called like a suspense meter, and what it does is it takes a look at your inventory and it like how much ammo you have, and then how long between encounters. And these two things add up, and over time, if you haven't had an encounter in a while and you have a lot of ammo, you're going to get ambushed. Doesn't matter where you are, you will get ambushed. And so it's like it keeps you on your toes constantly, man. I was constantly using telekinesis to like carry shit around because I was like, I never know when I'm going to get ambushed. I just didn't know. And so
I don't think that's fully. I've heard Glenn Schofield specifically talk about this. He's talked about it with regards to the original Dead Space. I don't think it's technically true. I think like you can test it by if you just like kill all the enemies and then just like stand still or like walk around.
Oh, okay.
They don't like show up. They won't spawn more. Like it's
right
it's set as far as I know. But like so I think it was first in Resident Evil 4 where they used to like look at how many health items you have and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd like there's like a hidden difficulty thing, and if you're doing well, it like maxes out. I assume it's basically the same as that, right? Where it's like, oh, we can spawn like in this combat scenario, we can spawn like 2 enemies or 3 enemies, and if you're doing well, we'll always spawn 3 enemies. I think the way it works is more like that, but they might have changed it for the remake. For like I don't know.
Yeah, because for the remake, from my experience is sometimes I wanted to run, and I think that if you're right, if you're in one room and you finish an encounter, it's not going to spawn more in that room. But if you are in an encounter after a while and you're like, I have a bunch of ammo, but I'm going to save it and I'm going to run into the next room. Guess what? They come in the next room. Like there's no escaping it. At least in my experience, because I was like, I'm just going to keep running. And then they were just like popping out of the vents. And it's like, you need to take on this encounter because you have been storing ammo and like you haven't had an encounter in a while. So
I think they do that anyway. Like I think that's a different mechanic. Like I think they do that even if you like it depends on the map, right? There's like
if you went
to elevators and there's zones that are safe, like that they can't. There's literally just not.
That's very right.
Like, way for them to get in, and then there's some that are obviously. I mean, there's even like jump scares that are designed for that. So like when you feel safe, they're not. But then, so it depends on that. But I think that's just like an enemy like tracking thing. But I do think the way it works is like if you're doing well and you go into a room and it's like
it spawns more.
Yeah, we can spawn 4 or 5, but we're gonna hit you with 5 instead or something. Like,
yeah, but that's really cool because it always kept me on my toes. Like I said, it's just kind of like thinking about that in the back of your head is like I could get ambushed, you know? And I would carry things around and up and down elevators. And I've been watching videos of people being like, it's really cool how like the gameplay can be so your own. Because I just had my own strats, you know? Like I was carrying 1-hit kill telekinesis items, or I would like I would stack up in the middle of the room before like a fight happened. I was like, well, I can just put a bunch of telekinesis items in the middle so that I know where they are, and I can just start like using them so that I'm not using my ammo. And on the impossible difficulty, I did like max out my suit and my plasma cutter first. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And another like a piece of advice for you, AJ, if you're gonna do it, is only carry 3 weapons at a time. Because if you're carrying all
I
the
don't
weapons,
need advice for Dead Space. I'm very, very good at this
that's
game. And
that's
it's
true.
not very
But
hard.
for anybody who's listening, just like carry only 3 weapons, because if you have all the weapons in your inventory, then it will constantly drop ammo for every weapon. But if whatever's in your inventory is all that will drop. And so I picked my 3 favorite guns, which is the plasma cutter, the contact laser beam gun, and then the force gun, which blows their skin off and is freaking awesome. I use those 3 weapons only, and like whenever I got too much ammo in either of the beam gun or the force gun, I would just sell it. Like I would sell it to where I have like maybe 2 rounds, like 2 clips, and then I'd be like, I can use the rest of that for nodes, health packs, things like that. Because there were times where I needed to sell ammo in order to regenerate health. Like it wasn't a perfect playthrough, but it definitely was fair. That's what I'm trying to say, is like it was so fair. And I really, really love the game. Like I gave it, so I just rated it on Backlogged, and I gave it 4.5 stars. I almost want to give it 10, or like I do it by numbers, but I wanted to give it 5 stars because
10
like,
stars?
10 stars. No, see, like I told my friend, because I like 1 out of 10 much more than I like stars. I just don't like stars that much. So I'm using the star system as a point system. So like 4.5 is 9 out of 10. But anyways, I gave it that because I just think that like this was one of the best survival horror games I have ever played. Like maybe it's controversial, maybe it's not. It's hard to compare the two, but I think I enjoy this a lot more than Resident Evil 2 because this had a lot more replayability and like every playthrough was really fun, while Resident Evil 2 had like 4 main paths and like A and B, and I was just like, oh, there's just so much replaying with it that I did not like that very much. But with this, it's just like every single playthrough, dude. I could do a whole playthrough with just one gun every single time. Like that would be so fun for me. I don't mind it. And after I beat it on Impossible 2, like I started another playthrough. Like right after I beat Impossible Platinum Pops, I'm like, let's do another one. And I just started it, and then I turned it off because I just wanted to use some of the unlockables that you get with Impossible difficulty. But it's a brilliant, brilliant game. Like it makes me so jealous that I missed out on Dead Space 1 and 2, but I played 3. And 3 is an awesome co-op game, but it's like kind of garbage for horror and survival. Like it's just fun. Like it's a fun shooter game, but it's not Dead Space. That game is not a Dead Space game. That's just straight up what it is. And I'm hoping that they, with seeing this and like understanding what's going on now with the story and Isaac and everything, is like I'm curious if they'll do a remake of 2 and continue like a same storyline, or if they'll do like a remake of 2 giving a different storyline and then completely change 3. Like no remake of like reimagining. No, yeah, exactly what I'm trying to say is a reimagining of 3. Like don't do that what they did. They don't need to remake that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they won't. I don't know.
I hope not, because I just like the horror aspects. Like it looks so good with the dark light and everything like that. Like
They don't, as I understand it, I don't think they'll ever remake like Dead Space 3. I feel like companies never remake bad games or games that people don't like, which is a shame
Yeah.
because they should. They should remake them and make them good.
yeah,
But I think because it's sort of like the ship's already sailed, like there's already like a negative perception of it, that it's like, oh, why would I want to replay that, you know? So
right.
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Like I think it would be much more interesting if they didn't remake Dead Space 1 at all and they remade Dead Space 3. I think that would be better for me because I've already played Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 1 has aged really well in my opinion. So
It has.
I feel like the remake, like I want to play the remake. I'm kind of annoyed at how expensive it is. Just for me, I'm going to wait for the price to drop. and I feel like it's an unnecessary remake, like completely unnecessary. But I'm still really looking forward to playing it. Like despite all of that, that's not me. Like it looks fantastic, and the original is fantastic, and this seems to be as good, if not slightly better or modernized in a way that the original maybe wasn't. So I'm really like it's kind of like a weird like mixed feeling in terms of this isn't necessary. It's a bit too expensive for me, but at the same time, it's something that I really want to play, and it's probably like the game that I want to play most right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on the price, I think that it was worth every penny for me. Like, I know that it is expensive, but man, it is a great game.
Yeah,
Great
but you've not
game.
played the original, so
That's true.
whereas I
But
have.
I've been watching YouTubers and stuff that did like are huge fans of the original, and everyone seems to be like, this is the definitive Dead Space. Like, this is the best one. Like, or not the best one out of all of them, because I think two. A lot of people say two is, but like, it takes elements from all three games and then recreates the same vision of one with like quality of life improvements. And so
Yeah, but okay,
I think
so
that you'll really really enjoy it. I really
no,
do.
but if I think Dead Space One, the original, is a 9 out of 10,
Hmm.
then like the remake. This is gonna sound stupid. The remake can't be a 15 out of 10, right? So
Right.
so it's like the problem is that
I think it'll
the
be again 9 out of 10
yeah,
for
the
you,
original is already so good to
or a
me
nine point five out of ten.
that it's like the remake could be better, but there's not really much room for it to be. See, this is the problem with remaking games that are considered like some of the
The
best of all time.
greatest. Yeah.
Is that if you remake them, I mean, the risk is you remake it badly. That's like a really bad.
Oh
That's a
no, it's amazing.
disaster.
It's
But
amazing.
even if you remake it well, it's like there's still so little for you to like gain. But I don't know. Maybe I will feel differently. But it's just it's something again. Like I'm looking forward to it. I really want to play it. It
Yeah,
seems fantastic. So I'm not like hating. I'm not being a hater on
no,
it.
not at all.
But
I'm looking forward to your thoughts on it since you are such a big fan of the original. Like, I'm excited to hear what you like and what you don't like, because from two different perspectives where I haven't played the old one, but I have been watching footage after I've beaten the new one. It's like one of those things where I look back at it and I'm like, damn, that game holds up really well. But this game is doing that better. Like the 0G areas are like much better, and it just it's awesome. Like, I think this, like I said, one of the best remakes out there, dude. It's really good. I'm so excited I'm so happy that I played it, and it was my 248th platinum, which is pretty cool. I'm getting close to that 250. I'm gonna make Stardew my 250. But that's another game I've been playing, dude. I actually have been playing Stardew Valley on Switch. I was gifted a Switch, and then on the go, I've just been kind of working on my farm here and there, because I haven't done the research, but I don't think that you can cross save between PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, things like that. So I've just been like working on this farm, and I really need to stop. It's like I'm so addicted and I love the game so much that it's just like I need to play actual Nintendo games on the Switch instead of playing Stardew for 50 hours like I have or whatever. It's just like, damn. But the interesting thing about that is Nintendo doesn't have achievements, and this is a trophy and achievement show, but the game has them installed in the menu. So you can like go into your inventory, and then you can like go over to like where you look at like what the game is logged. So if you sell crops or you sell like mining stuff like minerals and things like that, it's keeping track. And you can like go down to your like by your letters that you collect from your mailbox, and there's like an achievement section, and you can like look. There's like little stars that are designed, and it's like befriend 5 people, befriend, or get one person to five hearts and 10 hearts, and make $100,000, make $1,000,000 in the game. And it's just like, it's really really cool that they have like the achievement system embedded into the game actually, because Nintendo doesn't have their own. So I thoroughly enjoy that. But aside from that, to finish up my games is Witcher 3, man. I replayed Witcher 3, my favorite game of all time, and it stands because the update came out, and there was some visual bugs, but they weren't game breaking. And when I think back on it, I'm like, okay, so I did have one crash. It was the only one crash in the whole entire about 70 hours that I played, and that's really not that much. And then another thing is when I went to the menu, sometimes Geralt's like character model would have like this black bar over the top of his head. And again, this didn't get in the way of my game enough because I'm looking through the inventory. I'm like trying to make alchemy items, or I'm trying to put oils on my sword, or whatever I was doing, and then I'd go right back into the gameplay. And so that didn't account for very much of like anything. So there wasn't like, oh, I was in a tavern and everything flew up all at once. It was like nothing like that happened. It was just like little things that I think they've been patched out now because I've seen a couple updates since I stopped playing, but I'm not done with Witcher 3 because it is my favorite game and all that. But there's 2 DLCs. So I bought the complete edition of the game, because the only version I had was the original with the season pass. So I would have to download the game and then download the 2 DLCs. And I was like, you know what? It's on sale. So I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to play this game and get the platinum again. And that's what I did. But now it's got 2 DLC trophy packs along in the complete edition. And so I'll finish off Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine at a different time. Like, it was perfect because I finished the game like I think a night or two before Dead Space came out, preloaded Dead Space, and then I played Dead Space on that release day. And I think it was weird. It came out like 9 a.m. It was kind of cool. But anyways, like I platinum Witcher, and that was 247, and I went right into Dead Space. And I played a lot of games. Like, think about that. Like 70 hours, and then I completed Dead Space, and like that's a lot of gaming. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Stardew and The Witcher are such like big commitments as well. It was like when I was like going through Yakuza Hell, it's
Yeah.
like I'd play so much. I'd like play so much, but then if I like talk about it to anyone or like on a show, it's like, yeah, you know, I did so much gaming, and then it's like, but I've only got like one thing to talk about because
Yep.
it took out everything. So it's like you've got like 3 games, right? But you've done so much gaming because of how huge 2 of them are, right?
Yeah, dude. There's so much depth in each of them, and like I was really struggling. I just am about to finish up my first year on Stardew, and like, man, I was struggling to get gold, like really, really hard. And now I've got a barn, like a deluxe barn, and I've gotten like a big coop. But anyways, those are starting to make me money a lot more efficiently, and especially as the next year rolls on, I'll be making bank, dude, like 16 to 20,000 grand a day. And so that'll be much better. Cause I mean, I was making like 1,000 a day, and they're like, oh yeah, you should upgrade your barn for 20,000. So it's like, oh man, it's going to take me 20 days to like earn the money. You know, like it just, in a game where you have 28 days in a season, it's rough to try to make that kind of money. So making 20,000 a day is going to be a big game changer. But like I could go way in depth about each of the games too, because like Witcher 3, I could not believe it. Like when I was playing that game, I was going around and doing question marks because it's not really a checklist game, but it does have a lot of exploration in it and like just an ungodly amount of things to do. And I finished off like all of Velen. Like I was having so much fun, like seeing the creatures, seeing different locations, and like the environmental storytelling and everything that was going on in The Witcher is like, it was really fun. It's like, oh crap, you know, I gotta oil my blade because I'm running up on some necromorphs, or there's a vampire in here, and so I'm throwing moon dust to like cake them so that when they go invisible, I can see them moving around. It's just like, this is a lot of really cool shit that I was doing, and it's just like I wasn't bored going from point to point to point to point because everything is so different, especially on the hardest difficulty, which is what I played it on. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It's so interesting to be like, oh yeah, I played so much, but it's only 3 games. But I played so much. So much.
For sure.
But yeah, let's talk about your games, dude.
So I've technically played 3 games, but I've done barely any gaming. So that was part of what I was setting up there. So I played chess, and I've played a lot of chess. I'm getting better at chess. I wish I could tell how many hours I've played. One sec, I'm gonna find out how many games I've played. Okay, so in the past 90 days, I've played 346 games, which isn't that many, but they're all like 20-minute games. So 346 times 20 minutes. So what, like three games is an hour. So yeah, it's actually a long time. I mean, not all the games end up being 20 minutes, so it's not accurate. Like sometimes people blunder on like move 4 or whatever, and then it's just over. So most games don't last that long, but still, it's like it's one of those things where I talked about this before, but playing that many games, it that number will mean different things depending on like your exposure to chess or your experience with chess because 346 games is like barely any. It's barely scratching the surface. I play like three openings and that's it, and I don't even play them like fully according to theory. I don't really know what I'm doing still. But then to someone more casual, like 20-minute games, 346 games, that's like a long time, like a really long time to play something for. So I'm getting better. I'm rated like mid 600s now, 658. So
I have a little bit of jealousy because like sometimes in Discord I see you like and some other guys like joking about chess and I'm like I don't get it, but it's like it kind of looks funny because you're like, oh, somebody did this and then it's just like one piece moved and I'm like, I don't know what it means, but it's hilarious and it's just like one tiny move. It is just like it's good stuff.
yeah, there's a lot of obviously there's so much depth to the game, and there are like so many. The community's really thriving. I don't know why it took off so much, like because it had like I don't know, resurgence is the wrong word again because it's always been popular, but it like got kind of a big boost from the Queen's Gambit, and then it got like a huge boost recently, and I feel like it's kind of harder to explain the recent one. But chess.com, it's a really good website. I really like it. I mean, it's kind of annoying that you have to pay like £100 per year to get like analysis of your games, because without analysis of your games, I feel like it's going to be really hard for people to get better. So it kind of feels like you need to have that. Like with the analysis tool, after you play a game, it will review it for you and it will basically be like, oh, here you made like a really good move, or like here you like missed something that would have like turned the game away around. And there's like an evaluation from like Stockfish, which is a chess engine or computer, and it will be like white has an advantage of like this many points, or black has an advantage in this position of this many points. So it's really useful to see that, like as you do a move where it's like the evaluation changes and your position gets stronger or weaker. And a lot of the time it will be like you should have done this, and then you can click like show moves, and it will be like, if you take this, then he moves this, and then you move this, and then he moves this, and then you move this, and then he moves this, and then if you do that, you like get this out of it. Basically, like sometimes it's not obvious. Like you don't just think in terms of one move. You have to calculate like several moves in advance. So basically, like, oh, if I play this, it puts this under threat, and then if he plays the best move, which you always want to assume that they're going to play the best move, like then I can still do this. And then if they play the best move, I can do this. And then so on and so forth until like the end of a chain of moves where you're like, and then by the end of it, I'm like up this amount of material, or I've got this like checkmate threat or something. So that analysis is so useful and so like instructive for getting better at the game. I think last time we spoke, I was like in the 400s or 500s. So 650 is nice. I feel like I'm going to get 700 on the path to 1,000. 1,000 is the point where I'll be like happy, basically. I don't know if I'd like drop chess then or what, but I feel like if I hit 1,000, that's kind of the point where people say you start playing like real chess, I guess. Like chess where you don't just like massively like fuck up or like blunder something, or like just play like some catastrophic moves, basically. That sounds overly negative, but again, people will get what I mean if they've played chess or know about chess. It's like that's the level where people become competent and you start to think about like tactics and you know openings to some extent. And it's not just like fully, I don't know. I don't know if positional is the right term in this context, but it's where there's like more going on in the game. Like And I think at my level, I'm starting to get out of it, but people still often think in like one move bursts. The mistakes that I make still and my opponents make are like you'll have a piece that's defending another piece. So you'll have like, let's say like a bishop that in its position is defending a pawn, which means that like in other words, if the enemy's piece takes that pawn, you will then retake the piece with the bishop. Basically, like they can take the pawn, but if they do, you will just take them back immediately. So it's not
Right,
worth
it's a
it for them to
sacrifice
take.
piece.
No, no. Like, so a sacrifice is where you intentionally put your piece and sort of gambit it for your opponent to take, or like you intentionally put it there to like weaken their position for them to take. Whereas just like having a pawn or a piece defended doesn't necessarily mean that. Like your
Oh, okay.
pieces are basically your pieces have control over squares that they're not like on, if that makes sense. Like obviously a
Right.
piece has control over the square that it's on, but it also has control over everything that it can view. So I don't know, like the bishops like diagonally, for example, right? Like
Right.
they have control over the diagonal squares that they're like looking at basically. And so what a common mistake at my level people make is you sort of go to like move the bishop to basically be like, oh, if I put it here, I've got like this amazing attack, and they have to move their queen, or they have to move their king. Well, if they have to move their king and they're in check, they really do have to do that. But yeah, you're like, oh, I'm gonna move it here, and then that's gonna like cause this to happen. But then you forget, like, oh, well, the bishop was there, and it might have been there since for like the past like 15 moves. But like, oh, well, the reason it was good that it was there was because it was actually defending this like other pawn or this other piece the whole time. And now that you've moved it, like your enemy can just like take that other
Take
thing from
over.
you.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's obvious, but it's not when you've got like so many pieces at play and you're like thinking about so many things and you're trying to like run through things in your head quickly. And sometimes I mean I find it hard and I think everyone at my level finds it hard. There's sort of two general types of game. You can either play like an open game or a closed game, and I find it really difficult to play a closed game. So in an open game, it literally means that like the center is like busted open and there's no like there's very minimal pawns and everything can see everything. Like you have both sides have like options to move to so many squares on the board. Whereas a closed game is like you have like this wall of like two walls of pawns that are like defending each other. And so like if either of you push forward, it's just going to be this like cascade of like pieces taking pieces for so long. And when you normally like push into that exchange, it can be really hard to find like the more closed a game gets, the harder it becomes to find like a push that you can make where it will be productive for you in terms of like a lot of the time the way you calculate is you're like, oh, if I push the pawn here, because you can only move or take, right? You can't move and then take in the same turn. So you're like, if I move it here, he can take, and then I can retake, but then he can retake, and then I can retake, and then he can retake, and so on. But if you're the one instigating, you kind of have less. I don't. Again, I don't know, like less tempo than the opponent in terms of like if you've done a move, then that means that they get to be the first one to take. So they've got like I don't know, like a +1 advantage in terms of like moves they get to make,
Right.
which means you have to have like one additional piece to attack if you want to be favorable on the exchange. And so that means that closed games I find really, really hard to play because when you've got like all of this like clogged up center with loads of pieces everywhere, it means the amount of space you have to move to is so restricted. And it's like if I move here, like I'm just gonna get taken. But I also need to find a way to like form an attack and for it to be like devastating as well, like have to properly commit to it. I find that really tough. And so I feel like it's important to work on like solid, like foundational play, basically, still for me. And so that's kind of also what I mean by when you get to like 1,000, people say like, "Oh, you play real chess," because it's still so much like foundational skill to build up to just know how to like play a position essentially. And as people know, like, or maybe people don't know, but with chess, so the opening is all like at the top level, it's all theory in terms of like people have solved. Solved. I don't know if that's the right. Like yeah, mostly quote unquote solved openings in terms of like if they play this in the opening, you should play this in response, and that goes on for about like between 5 and 10 moves. But then after 5 or 10 moves, you eventually like run out of theory in terms of openings, and then you get to when you get to the middle game, you get to like sooner or later you get to like a unique game, like a game that hasn't ever been played before, basically. And so then it becomes like purely about skill, like because you can't just memorize it. And it's true as well. Again, it kind of is why the game is really really beautiful. Is that I think it's like even computers like when you use chess engines, they still play differently. They don't play as though it's like fully like completely solved from all the way from the start of a game to the end of the game. Like a computer won't play the same game every time. There's not like one solution to chess. So I think it's like 7 pieces or 5 pieces. No, I think it's less than 7. It can solve like an end game. So if you've got like 3 pawns and like a king and they've got like 2 pawns or something and a king obviously, it can like the engine can solve it. Like the engine can be like, oh, so to win, you just do like this, and this is like totally losing or something, and it will like fully know how to solve like every combination at that point. But that's only in like the end game. Like that's really in like the final moments of the game, and so it does make it so much more fun that it's like it's complicated and you have to use like instincts and like good technique. Like there's an artistry to it. It's not just like purely I don't know like mathematical or logical. Like it is very logical, but it's there's still some creativity to be found in it, which I think that like mix of like I don't know computer brain and like creative brain, it's quite cool. I think I really enjoy it in that sense. So yeah, it's been fun to like watch videos about it, to learn about it, to play it a ton. Yeah, really good. I'm hoping. I mean, it would be really nice to get to like 800 by the next time we record, but I don't know if I'll do that because I expect my rating to increase like slower and slower. Realistically, I know I got stuck at around 500. Like I kept going like above it and then below it and then above it and then below it, and then eventually I broke through, and now I'm like raced up to like 650. So, and I've been like at 670, I think is my max or something. So I've sort of been up and down now, but not as much as I was when I was stuck at 500. And I'm still having a really good time with it. It's tough because I feel like you have such an advantage if you play it as a child or know about it as a child when your like brain's really what's it elastic like that you can it's kind of like learning languages, right? They say it's a lot easier if you do it in like early childhood because you can just pick things up so much quicker than you can when your brain's like more plastic and sort of rigid, I guess. Because that's the thing, right? With like chess grandmasters, a lot of them are like, well, not a lot of them, but you can become a chess grandmaster by like 14, right? Like you can just be like a child or like an early teenager and be like one of the best in the world, and it happens with regularity. Like if you look at the greatest chess players of all time, a ton of them were like they became grandmasters at like 16, 17, or something. So it's not like you have a disadvantage if you're older, which is a bit I don't know. It's kind of obvious for like physical sports, right? That like oh if you know if you try to become a football player and you're 55 years old, you know, that's not going to work out too well for you. But if you become a chess player, it's kind of like it's more possible, but you don't really consider it to be like a similar thing because it's obviously not like physically as similar, but you still do have somewhat of a like slight disadvantage, which is a little depressing. But It's so it makes me like wish that I got into it when I was younger, because maybe I'd be like amazing at it now. Perhaps, who knows? But it helps me visualize things as well, which is nice. I feel like I'm good at visualizing stories and like fantasy and like situations, but I'm quite bad at visualizing things and like rotating objects in 3D in my head and that kind of thing. And I'm bad at like visualizing like permutations or like highly mathematical things, I think. So I think chess kind of helps me with that like spatial organization in terms of visualization, which is nice as well. There's like when you play on chess.com as well, you can, without doing a move, you can draw arrows on the board, which is really cool because you can like draw arrows to be like, oh, so I go here, he goes there, he goes, and you can like it's like the equivalent of doing it in your head, but you're doing it like visually to be like, I go here, he goes there, then this happens, then he takes, then I take, that kind of thing, and that's really cool to do.
That is really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
So
Whoever made it is a genius. Like that is, it's such a complex game. Like wow, you know.
yeah, there's stuff. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, it's so complex in terms of what's cool about the history of chess as well. Is there's time periods where like there's different styles based on nationality, which is really cool and interesting. Like the Russians, who Russia's really good at chess historically, has been amazing at chess. The way they play is they play like really slow and like solidly positional, like traditionally, in terms of they won't, they're quite like risk averse and like let's like guarantee the win type play, instead of like let's just like be up material, for example. They're less likely to go for that if they can play something more solid positionally. And I find that really interesting about like chess history and how different like attitudes and strategies and tactics have developed. And then there's stuff where with openings, for a long time it was seen as very important to like control the center with pawns, and that is really good fundamental play, especially at a low level. It's like easier to get your head around it to control the center of the board, because it just like gives you so much more presence and so much more room to work with. And that was like historically like that's considered the great, but then like the greatest way to play. But then there came like these ideas of like modern and hyper modern openings where you use your pieces instead of your pawns to like control the game, and you sort of let the other team take the other, not the other team, the other player take the, although you can play chess as a team, I guess.
Yeah, I
But
was gonna say it kind of
um,
is. I mean, you have a team with all your pieces, but
yeah, you can control, like you can let them take the center with pawns to give your pieces more like I guess dominion over the board. And then that became like a thing with how people play, and then people just play like crazy shit, and it seems like it's dumb, but it's actually like really really galaxy brained. And there's a lot of stuff with, if you watch like the highest level, it's like people play like batshit stuff where it like seems like it's like this will never work, this is like stupid, but it's so like, it's like that thing of when you get like really really good at something, you like rip the rule book up, you're like fuck this, like I'm so good at this that I don't have to follow like convention at this point because no one's going to beat me, and it's going to like throw people off, and it's going to mean like all the theory that they like, I've studied all the theory, you've studied all the theory, so like if I just follow theory, it's not going to get me anywhere, because we'll just get like a draw or a stalemate or whatever. So it's like better for me to like go crazy basically, but like crazy in like a way that like makes sense. It's not the same way like an idiot or like someone who doesn't know how to play chess would go crazy. It's like controlled crazy, and that's always really cool to see as well. I mean, it's also a way to develop bad habits, because if you watch the way like Hikaru or like Magnus Carlsen play, and you just try to play like them, you're just gonna like lose every game, because it's like they're so far ahead of you that you can't just like replicate them. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna do what they do, because it's like they can only get away with it because they're so good at like being creative and being like able to calculate and know everything that's going on, and they've studied the game for so long that it's like they understand how all the positions manifest and everything. So yeah, it's really fun to like go down the rabbit hole of it. I'm really enjoying it still, and I've played a bunch of it and I've watched a bunch of videos and I want to keep getting better at it. And it's so nice to just pick up and play. I mean, it's great as well that you can just play it on like I don't play on my phone, but I normally play on my desktop or my laptop. And it's just cool how during like lunch at university I can play a bit or whatever, or at the end of the day before I go home, just play a bit. It's nice. I've also been playing. Well, so do you have any comments on chess?
I don't think so. I think that it's pretty cool that you can. I mean, they're short enough games to where it's like when you are on the go, like this. That's a good mobile game. I mean, like just you can play a match and then go home or whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, I've also been playing Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this.
I've not played enough of it to sort of say a lot of interesting things about it, I guess, because I've only played like I don't know, like 30 minutes, maybe, like basically half of the first chapter, or I don't know, maybe three-quarters of the first chapter. I don't know how long the first chapter is, but enjoying it a lot. It's got a lot of charm and personality. It looks beautiful. The combat, annoyingly, like I feel like I'm waiting for it to get more, like to add more mechanics on top of what it has. The foundation is really solid. I've been playing it on hard, and it's not too difficult so far. But it's like the difficulty is because whenever you have like a combat arena, it does the Devil May Cry thing where you get ranked on different things based on how you do. And so the difficulty doesn't feel like, oh, I'm going to die. The difficulty's like, damn, I really wish I got like S ranks in everything. Whereas I got like S and then like a D and then like an S or something. I'm like, what the fuck? Like that's the type of difficulty that it's giving me. Yeah, so for those who don't know, it's made by Tango Gameworks, the developers of The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. It's on Xbox and PC. It's on Game Pass. It's a like rhythm. Is character action game the right term? I think so. It's a
Yeah.
it's like Metal Gear Rising. It's like Devil May Cry. It's like Bayonetta. It's one of those games in terms of combat. So it's like a third person melee combat focused game, but it's music based, rhythm based. The whole world moves with like the rhythm of the beat, basically. So if there's ever like mechanical components, it goes to the beat of whatever the song is. And the story's quite like cute so far. I found in the trailer when they announced it, I thought, oh god, this is terrible. It's horrible. Like I hated the tone of it. I thought part of it reminded me of like Forspoken, basically, and I was like, oh no.
Ooh.
But then playing it, it works better. I think it's more self-aware than I thought, and it's not as grating as well. I think there's some charm to it. It's like hit or miss. I'd say like it's like some of it I'm like some of it I'm like yeah, this is cool. So the premise is you play as Chai. He's a guy who is going to this academy. Forget the name of it. It's basically he goes to an academy. He's like, oh wow, this is gonna be great. He shows up and they get like everyone that's joining gets like robotic enhancement basically. And I don't think this is a spoiler. Maybe I had the game spoiled for me. Who knows? But um, so you go and you're like getting your robot enhancement, but you've got like an MP3 player with you, and it falls into like the chamber with you where you're getting like modified, and so it gets like crushed into your chest and like becomes like part of your heart basically, or replaces your heart. Just goes into your chest with like the robotic enhancements, and so you're considered by like the security of this like university as like a defective like unit basically, and so they all want to kill you because you're not right because you got this like MP3 player put in you. And the MP3 player basically makes it so you're like, I don't know, like your heartbeat, your like perception of the world is to the rhythm of the music. Like everything you see is, I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but it's cool. Just like go with it. It's a cartoony, like
Yeah, the cell shaded
children's.
like
Yeah, yeah,
cartoon. It was really, really cool looking, actually.
yeah. So it's just like it's like a goofy premise, but basically it's like everything goes to that. Like you have to move to the beat, and everything moves to the beat for like your perception of the world. And the reason I say like, oh, it's not a spoiler, is it? But I'm pretty sure like the idea is also that like universities like fucked up in terms of like they're turning people into robots for like their own like it's not to have like a great time for the students or for the people going there. It's to like use them for whatever the fuck, right? Like basically like take
Right.
them over and just do whatever, which I feel like is a pretty common premise. I feel like I've seen that before somewhere, perhaps, maybe many places before. But yeah, it's a really cool game. The characters are interesting. The combat is really cool. I feel like I want to. I said cool twice, which is disappointing. But the combat. So there's like you have light attacks and heavy attacks, and the way you pace light attacks in terms of a combo is different to the way you pace heavy attacks, because heavy attacks it's like once every other beat essentially, whereas the light attacks are like once every beat. And so if you want to do a combo that's like I don't know, like XXXX, it's like you want to be like XXXX or something, right? Like you just like go on the beat. Whereas if you want to use like Ys, it's like XYYX or something. Like it's like, well, you'd have another gap between the Y and then the X. But yeah, I think I stayed okay in rhythm there. But anyway,
You did good.
the idea is when you do a Y move, you have to like mentally be like, okay, so like skip a beat and then do like the next move. And it makes it
Right.
quite complicated because you're like juggling this in your head while also trying to like dodge attacks. And also if you dodge an attack that uses like it uses up a beat as well because there's a dodge button. And if you chain dodges, so if you combo dodges, it like gives you like more distant dodges. Like you can combo 3 dodges together and it's like gives you like a super dodge that makes you cover tons of distance. So you can also use that to like traverse faster as well, to like move through the world. And it's really interesting, but you've sort of got to like adjust, at least I do, adjust like your mind to it. There's a I think the best way to stay in tune with it is probably to play with headphones. Or there's if you press the I think it's I don't know what button. It might be the Y button outside of combat. I don't think so though. No, I think it's the back button. If you press one of the buttons on the controller, press all the buttons on the controller, you'll eventually get this thing that it's like a visual indicator of when like the beat is. Basically, like it's kind of like a note highway from like Guitar Hero. Basically, I mean it doesn't look like that, but it's the same idea, right? Where you've got like notes coming to like a center circle, and it's just like this is when the like the clicks are. This is when you want to press the button. The beat's quite fast initially, which I didn't expect. I kind of expected it to start slow and then like get faster, and I assume in some cases it will get faster, but it actually starts out quite fast. Like it felt like I wanted to like at first it felt like I wanted to mentally deal with it by being like, okay, so the beat's like like bang 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 like that quick, but I kind of wanted to be like bang 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 like that in terms of
Right.
how I wanted to play it, because I just wanted to like it was more important to me to not get like a lot of attacks out quickly, but to like make sure every attack that I get out is on the beat, if that makes sense. So
Right.
it made me want to skip ones, but that doesn't work at all. Like you shouldn't do that. You should match whatever the song is and do it that way. And combos are difficult. They feel really satisfying to do. There's stuff like air juggles as well, and everything that you'd come to expect from this type of game. I know there's parrying, which I don't think I've even got to yet, but I'm looking forward to it because I love a parry mechanic in a game. Also, the way enemies telegraph attacks is really fair, because what they'll do is they'll basically be like, they'll have like, so even their like animations for charging up or like telegraphing their attack, that goes with the beat as well. And so you've always got at least one beat to like prepare to dodge the attack, because again, to like otherwise it would be completely unfair. They basically have to give you one beat for you to, and it's usually more than one beat, at least so far, to basically see that they're about to do an attack. So then you've got time on the next one to dodge. So it means you can like in your head kind of like queue up actions, especially if you're like, oh, this takes like 1.5 beats. It means you can like be like, okay, so it like if you're really on top of it, you can be like attack, attack, dodge type thing. Like you can really plan it out almost like meticulously to get like the exact windows that are like perfect for timing. And it means that it's really fair in terms of like it's purely based on your ability. There's never anything that like comes out at you unexpectedly. I don't know, maybe the only thing that I could imagine may like screw you over is if the camera sucks on some stuff. Like maybe the camera sucks in some areas, and so even though the enemy's telegraphing the attack, you can't see the enemy, so then you don't know. Like that's I don't know if that happens in the game, but that's a way that I feel like someone could counter this point. In
The,
terms of the music, it's good so far. I don't think it's amazing, but it's never like kicked into high gear for me yet. So I feel like the game's kind of holding back and like easing me into it. And it feels like one of those games where I don't know it for sure, but I think first of all you want to play it in like you want to not do what I've done where you play for like 30 minutes. You want to play for probably like 2 hours, and then you probably want to like play this game like day after day, right? Like because you'll get better at it as you get like used to the rhythm basically and used to the mechanics. And you'll want to have it like in your head. You'll want to be like mentally prepared for it. You don't want to like play this and then play something else and then come back and play this and then play something else, because it'll probably just like you'll just lose the play style. It plays so uniquely that you just like you'll need to do that.
yeah,
So
dude. And there's like with rhythm games, it's interesting because depending on how you play them, like with some of the longer pauses, I keep the beat going, like with my foot, my finger, like maybe I'll do so like you said, press Y and it might be longer, but I'll do like a thing where like I tap the Y button and then I tap it again, but don't press it. Like I press it, tap it, press it again, so that it's like it keeps my fingers moving in the rhythm of the beat. And it's like you're not doing the button input, but you are staying on beat. And I like that's the only way I can play rhythm games, because if I'm not, I'm like, oh, I messed up, and then it's just like everything falls out of rhythm. While if I'm just like constantly with my body keeping it, it's like that's the only way I can do it. That's the only way.
there's a mechanic where I think it's like I don't know if it's the end of the combo or something, but there's like a at the end of like a string of attacks basically, or like yeah, I think it's like there'll be this like big like red circle that gets smaller and smaller until it hits like an outline, like a translucent outline of like a green circle, and then the red circle will go green, and then you need to press a button, and then it'll do like a big like mega attack. And what's cool about it is, so what you meant to do is you meant to like hit, and then you see this red circle come up, and you meant to like wait, and then hit, and then it'll do like this big, huge attack.
Wow.
What's cool about it is if you really want to just like stay with the beat, it won't penalize you if you press buttons while the circle's like shrinking, basically. Like as long as you're like on it, basically. Like if you kept going with it, like it will line up so that like okay, so you got like the big red circle, it's getting smaller, it's getting smaller. If you keep pressing say X with the beat while it's getting smaller, the beat of the song will match up with when that circle becomes green exactly, so you'll
Wow.
actually be like guaranteed to get the perfect hit basically. Or you can stop pressing it and just wait and then time it that way, which I think is really cool that it's like you can do it either way. So you can either be like, I'm just gonna like keep pressing the button along with the beat, kind of like you say, like with like tapping your foot or like pressing the button or whatever, like
Yeah.
so that then when it lines up, it's like still gonna be like bang on it. Or I'm like, all right, let's say I don't need to do that. I'm just gonna like wait, then hit it, and then it will still give me the perfect thing.
Is that a
So
risk reward kind of situation where like if you mess up the beat, will it disappear that red circle?
no, I don't think so. I think it's
Okay,
like
cool.
I think it's well, if you mess up the beat, you're not going to hit it on the perfect timing, right? Because you'd have to
Right.
if you to not do that, you'd have to like mess up the beat and then correct yourself before it
Yeah.
gets to that point, right? Because because it only lines up on the beat. So if you go off beat and then stay off beat, but like you're like on your own beat and correct with that, then it will be
Yeah.
wrong when the circle gets small enough. It's a hard game to talk about, believe believe it or not.
I can believe it, dude. It's different. It's a very different kind of game, you know? It's
Yeah,
really
I'm
cool.
surprised by how I feel like it's really visually pleasing. I feel like it's really polished. From what I've heard, it's like an 8 to 10 hour game. It's the achievement list, it's got like 65 achievements or something. The only negative I have isn't even from me playing it, but and this is unbelievable to me, kind of. The difficulty achievements aren't stackable. This is a first party Xbox game in 2023, and we've got non stackable difficulties. So if you beat the game on normal, you don't get the achievement for beating the game on easy. You have to
Oh
go and
no.
do it like on all of them.
What?
But I think there might be a workaround for it. I know definitely by default it isn't on because more people have the achievement for beating it on normal than people do for beating it on easy. And it also messes up like the I mean these are always messed up, but it messes up the stats for like how many people, you know how you can look at like how many people have like the achievement or trophy for like beating the game, right? On easy, for example, like you
Right.
can look like, oh, what percent of players have beaten the game on easy? And there was like a whole thing with like The Last of Us Part 2 or something where it's like a shocking amount of people, like
Dropped
45%
off.
of people completed it or something. No, it was like a really good thing for that game, I think,
Oh, okay.
as far as I know. Well, you can't do that with this game. I mean, you can't do the achievements are kind of busted in terms of those percentages, so you can't really do it for any game. But you really can't do it for this game because it'll be like X players have beaten it on easy, but that doesn't mean that's the total proportion of players that have beaten the game at all. Because if you beat it on easy, normal, hard, or like very hard, you're in like a different category. Like you have to add up all the numbers basically because you don't get the lower difficulty ones for it. So yeah, that's really annoying. I mean, I feel like it's a game where you do want to play it multiple times. I can imagine it being again, like I said earlier about it seems like one of those games where it really benefits from you just like the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Like play it a bunch and then play it a bunch more, and then you'll like get better and better, and it'll be really really satisfying. And also like if you again like kind of like with Dead Space, although a totally different genre, totally different stint, like you will understand the combat encounters like and the stuff that's added to the game where you're like, oh okay, so this adds like this complexity to it. And I bet it feels really satisfying to go back as well to early sections, that kind of thing. It always is in these kinds of games. I really enjoyed replaying Metal Gear Rising Revengeance because of this. Like I loved going back to like earlier bosses and being like, oh, so I know your gimmick now, so it's just really cool to focus on this one technique and just like absolutely destroy you. Yeah, so it's really good so far. I don't know, like I'm way too early to like rate it or appraise it properly, but I highly, highly recommend it. I am amazed. I mean, we haven't mentioned it. I'm amazed that it was shadow dropped. I think it leaked like the day before, but it leaked very minimally. Like it leaked in terms of like I feel like the name got out there and people were like, "Oh, Tango will have something in the show." Is basically the context I heard from it, and I feel like the leaks didn't get big enough to like ruin the surprise or like ruin the hype of it. And I can't believe it got shadow dropped at all because Xbox didn't have anything at the Game Awards. If I don't know if we talked about that, but normally they have like a decent presence at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
They had nothing, but like they had this game that was like ready to go, basically, right? Like, I mean, it came out in January, so it was pretty much done in late December or pretty close to being done. And they just held. They were like, nope. They were like, we're not going to give Jeff anything. Like, fuck you, Jeff. We've got this game. It would probably be a good place for it, but we're gonna like keep it for our thing, and we're just gonna like be like, here it is, it's available now, which I love. I've talked about before, I think, possibly multiple times, that in an ideal world for me, the marketing cycle is as short as possible, and games only get announced when they're finished. Is what I prefer selfishly, because I really enjoyed Half-Life Alyx's marketing. I liked Fallout 4's marketing. I think Fallout 4's marketing is probably better than the game itself. How amazing that was. The hype around that game was absolutely insane, and I think it would have faded if they would have like given it more than like 6 months or whatever it was between announcement and release. I think it might have been less than that, but yeah. So I love that kind of thing where they're just like, this is a game, we've been working on it a bunch, it's done, play it like later today. I think that's just so incredible, and I feel like it only happens usually for very, very tiny games. Like, and I feel like this kind of counts as an experimental game for sure, but it's so polished, and it's like a decently long game that it feels experimental, but it doesn't feel like, hey, this is a 2 hour indie experience. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
it's not that level. Like, it could be a like it couldn't be a big game, but it could be like a medium sized, like a regular release, right? And I mean,
Right.
I assume the game also maybe did better than they expected critically. I think it's got a 90, or I think it might be an 89 on Open Critic.
Wow.
Um, it's been getting a lot of positive coverage. I don't think I'd agree with that so far, but I'm too early. Like, for me, maybe it's like a 7.58, but it's so hard with this kind of thing because I always feel like that with this type of game in terms of like even like stuff like Bayonetta, right? Because you start out and it's like very, very simple, and like the enemies are simple and the mechanics are simple, and then it just like layers on stuff on top of that, and then on top of that, and then on top of that, and then you like, because you have to sort of slowly learn and like build up your skills and build up like the moves that you can do. And this game is even more like that because you're also worried about the rhythm aspect. You're not just worried about like the move set and the combos and things like that. You're also worried about understanding the mechanics of the rhythm on top of that, which makes it more complicated. So really enjoying it. Highly recommend it so far. Want to play more of it. Yeah, I'm annoyed that I don't have too much time because again, it's kind of a really frustrating game in the sense that, like I was saying, where I don't have much time, and I for this game I want to spend like a weekend and just like devote all of it to it. Basically, that's what I feel like I need to do to get the most out of it. I don't want to like piecewise like be like, oh, 10 minutes here and there, 30 minutes here and there. I want to be able to properly commit to it. Are you going to check out Hi-Fi Rush?
I don't know if I am. I might do it later, maybe between Star Wars and Hogwarts, depending on how much time there is.
Yeah,
And if I finish Callisto, but did you have one more game to talk about?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
I was going to say as well, it's what was really unexpected about all of this is that this game comes out on Xbox before Ghostwire Tokyo does as well, which is just like
Wow.
interesting in terms of timing. Like, I don't really have
Yeah.
like a point with that, but it's just like,
Two games from the same studio, like real quick on Xbox.
yeah, because it'll be what, March when it comes to Xbox.
Yeah.
Because it's 1 year. Because that was the same thing with Deathloop, right? Like, we know from Deathloop that because it was the same. It was basically the same agreement, as far as everyone knows, where it was like Deathloop and Ghostwire PS5 exclusives for 1 year, and then with Deathloop we saw that they had like the Xbox version like ready to go, right? Like as soon as that 1 year came and
Yeah.
went, it was like 4 days later they were like, here it is, like it's on, and they had the update actually with some additional achievements and stuff. So I assume it will be the same, where it will be like basically 1 year on the dot. It will be like, okay, it's coming to Xbox and it's out like in 5 days or something. Like, here you go. Maybe not with this, because I mean, if the studio is working on Hi-Fi Rush as well, like maybe they shifted it around and they were like, actually get this finished first, and we can wait like a bit longer for Ghostwire. I don't know. It's possible that happened, but I would assume it will be like out after a year. And yeah, it's just strange, right? Like I feel like that was probably another reason why no one was expecting this, because it's like they only just released Ghostwire Tokyo last year, so it's like they're not going to have another game. And I don't know how big the team size was on this. Like I don't know, because I didn't think Tango were like a big studio, right? Like you don't really associate them with making two games at the same time. So I'm interested how it came about. Like I don't know enough about the development of it, like versus Ghostwire Tokyo. In terms of like, was the studio working on? I mean, they must have been working on both, right? They definitely didn't make Hi-Fi Rush within a year,
Yeah,
so
I wouldn't say so.
yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, it's cool, right? People have said for a long time that Xbox needs to get like a Japanese studio and have like, you know, some people say JRPGs. I disagree on that one, but they need Japanese
They
games.
need JRPGs, dude. They need JRPGs.
Um,
JRPGs are great.
well, the first step is to have Japanese games, right? That's the first.
Yeah,
That's the first one, at least, because Nintendo and Sony have. I mean, Sony's kind of, in terms of first party, Sony's moved away from it, but to some extent. But obviously, Nintendo and Sony have had a much bigger presence in terms of that. Like always, and Xbox has had literally nothing in terms of first party Japanese stuff. So it's cool in the sense that now they've got this studio, if they can like build them up or give them like more stuff going on and use them as like a hub for multiple games rather than, because I think people, myself included, were like expecting just like one thing every like 4 years or 5 years or something. So if they can get like two teams going or like three teams going or something crazy, like that would be, I think, really positive for them, because it's not like the good thing about Tango, and why I've always thought they were incredibly underrated and like a great part of Bethesda, is that it feels like, and makes even more sense for a first party perspective, is especially for like Xbox and for Bethesda, it's not like any of their other studios make the same things that they make, right? So it's like they're not gonna overlap in like a clumsy bad way, where it's like on the other hand with like shooters, right? They've got like kind of too many shooters, and if they buy Activision, they're gonna have like even more shooters. So it's like, you've got like so many teams making shooters that you're like, do we really need this many, right? All at
right.
once. Whereas for Tango, it's like they make games similar to Capcom, I guess.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
But in terms of internally, there's not really any other studios that are making the same thing. I guess Ninja Theory is probably the closest with Hellblade, but I mean, not really, right? Like, I feel like it's kind of there, but maybe not. But yeah, so I always thought that was interesting about them, both when they were just a Bethesda studio and when they became an Xbox studio. That it makes sense to build them up, I think, because you're not very likely to have them make something that like competes with your own product or oversaturates your own offering. Like it feels like they'll always make like a different thing that's like this is really additive to everything that we do, rather than something that is just like another Gears of War or something. Like,
Right.
so yeah, I think interesting game, interesting studio. I need to get on it as well, because the other thing about Ghostwire is I've really liked Tango, and now they've got two games that I haven't played or like haven't finished. I guess I have played,
Yeah.
but yeah, they've got two games that I haven't played properly, essentially, and then they've uh, they've only released two other games. So it's like now I'm like a fake Tango fan all of a sudden. Like a year ago, I was like number one Tango fan. I've got all achievements in The Evil Within twice on 360 and on Xbox One. All achievements in The Evil Within 2. I was like number one Tango guy. And we've talked about how much we love The Evil Within.
Oh yeah.
I was like the Tango guy. Then all of a sudden, in the space of a year, I've played properly half of their games. I've got no achievements in Hi-Fi Rush right now. I've lost it. I've fell off. So I need to get back on it. Like maybe they
I'm
need to
s-
take priority.
I'm so curious of your Ghostwire thoughts too, because I platinumed that game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so we'll have a fun discussion on that.
I want to perfect both. I assume Hi-Fi Rush will be the hardest game to perfect because it's got a
Oh,
lot of
I think
achievements
so.
and you have to do it on the hardest difficulty.
Oh,
You
hit
have to
4 runs maybe.
Yeah, you have to do. There's tons of optional stuff you have to do. There's. I actually don't think this is too bad. There's one to like beat a level without being hit. The levels are quite long, it seems. Like it seems like the levels are about from half an hour to an hour long. Again, I don't know. Listeners will know better than me, I think, at this point. So the first level really isn't difficult, but I don't know, not getting hit at all. It's odd, right? Because this is always, and it's something that I like. You mentioned risk or reward earlier. Something I really like about these types of games is that the way damage scaling works is that usually you want to like combo enemies, right? Because you kill them faster. But if you're trying to like not get hit at all, it's like part of you wants to be really conservative to just like be like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna get one hit, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna get one hit. Almost like you're playing like Elden Ring or something, right? Like or like Dark Souls, really, really passively. Where you're like, I'm gonna go in, hit once, go out, go in, hit once, go out. But they disincentivize that because you do no damage that way, and you give the enemy like more opportunities to hit you, and you get a terrible rating. So it's like you have to balance like that like slow cautious playstyle that's going to take you so long to get through the level versus like I'm just going to go like hit parry hit parry, you know, like just full like zen mode, like hit dodge hit dodge like immediately, like as soon as you can. And that's obviously the most fun way to play as well. So it's like you've got that yeah, that risk reward aspect of it where you're trying to do it hitless, and it's really tense as well, but it feels so satisfying. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to getting everything in this game. Yeah, seems great. The other game I was playing was Hypnospace Outlaw. Have you heard of this game?
I don't think I have.
Yeah, so it came to Game Pass a while ago. It's not on Game Pass anymore. So I bought it. It's about £16, so it's not very expensive. I was interested in it, but it was never enough. I never knew enough about it. It was like one of those things where, like, when stuff comes to Game Pass and PS Plus or like Amazon Prime, whatever. I usually look at it. I look at it even for like PS Plus, which I don't really care about, but it's like it's nice to look at because I think there's something about like I feel like games subscription services do this a lot better than film stuff because I never know what's coming to Netflix basically until I browse Netflix. I'm like, oh, okay, so this stuff is on Netflix now. You get what I mean? Like, I feel like I don't see like good like announcement things, whereas I feel like for PS Plus and Game Pass and stuff, they do a good job of just like having like an image that's just like, hey,
These are the
like
games.
these
Yeah.
7 things are just like they're coming or like they're here.
Yeah.
They do a
I
really good
agree with
job
that.
with it, and so I feel like I keep track of it. So what I normally do is when those come, I'm normally like, I'm going to Google these games. I'm going to go through, and it's quite manageable as well because usually it's only like it's like only twice a month, and it's usually like 6 7 games maybe, or between like 4 games and 9 games or something. So it's like, and a lot of them you'll already recognize as well. You'll be like, oh, I know what that is. You know, like I've seen that before, or I hate that, or this is great, or whatever. So it's usually only like 3, let's say, that you're like, oh, I've never heard of this. What is this? And it's nice as well because stuff that gets spotlighted on these things is usually of like decent quality. At least it's usually interesting in some way. It can be bad interesting sometimes, but it's usually at least interesting. So I looked it up in that context, and I was like, this seems cool, but I don't know. Like, it's reviewed okay. It's got like an 82 on Metacritic or something. So it's like, like it seems like it's good. Like everyone that's played it is like, this is a good time, but they're not like, this is like a must play. Like you got to rush out, play it right now. But I saw Joseph Anderson streaming it, and I watched about 30 minutes, and then I had to stop the stream. I was like, I want to play this myself because I don't want to get it like spoiled for me. It's a like sort of detective game where it's point and click, and like the Hypnospace Outlaw aspect of it. So Hypnospace, it uses this thing called Hypno OS or Hypno OS, I guess. I don't know, it might be Hypno OS. Anyway, the premise is that it's 1999 and the year 1999, and it's like almost like a Windows style operating system, only you like fall asleep and plug your brain into it. And it's like you're like in like your subconscious, you're like at a computer is the way it works. And it's like late 90s, early 2000s era internet in like an amazingly it's like a twisted but like faithful way. Like the way like web pages like look all like fucked up and like um they make your eyes want to bleed, and
Yeah.
um they like
Uh,
autoplay music, and they have like really shitty like clip art style like gifs and stuff, and like they have like the wavy text, like all of that stuff that you associate with like early internet. It's there, and it's like the web pages are like people not knowing what they're doing basically. And there's also something, I don't know if you remember it, but it's something like spooky about it almost as well, like where it's like it feels like it's like more like uncharted like territory. It's like not
yeah.
it's like there's like less policing and less like there's fewer sites where it's like, oh, everyone goes to this website, everyone goes to
Yeah.
this social media thing, because there's no social media or no like well, I don't know, I mean, there's no like established like multi-billion dollar social media empire. It's just like
Right.
people trying to like figure shit out. And I think that's a really interesting time period and a really interesting setting for a game. And you click around and you can search stuff. I'm playing it on PC because I feel like it obviously if you have a mouse cursor and a keyboard, like it's way better. And what you are is you're a volunteer internet janitor basically, or internet moderator. You like work with, I guess, like a policing force for the company, and it's your job to like spot illegal content and get rid of it. And I've done one case so far. Well, I've done one and I've looked into a second one, and I've just like explored around basically. And it's like a web browser game, really. Like you're browsing websites and using the operating system, and you can write like sticky notes on your desktop and stuff. And you can download files and then play files and all of that. It's really cool. And I had a case to like get rid of copyright infringement. They were like, this guy, I forget his name, his cartoon character. He's called something stupid. He's like called like Gumby Goober or something. He's some like cartoon character, and it's like we've heard news that there's like three violations of like copyright with this character. So like go find it. So then the first thing I do is I go to the web browser and I search the character basically, like, and then I found this website from this English teacher, and her webpage is like quite sad because her young daughter died, and it's like dedicated to her. Like it's like this is like a memorial to her basically, and the page on her site violates the copyright is from her English class. She like set them an activity of like drawing the character, like doing like fan art, like oh, draw this character in like this
Right.
situation from like the book that you read, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like all like children's artwork, and so you have to go through it and you have to be like, that's copyright infringement, like fuck you, like kind of thing, like you take
Damn.
down, yeah, you take down the stuff from like this like nice, seemingly nice woman that is like trying to do something nice for like her dead daughter and like her school kids, and you're just like, fuck you, like you got to get rid of this. And it's really funny as well because some of the artwork is so bad that when you click on it to like do a copyright violation, the like AI bot that like detects if you're correct or not is like, this isn't a copyright violation because like the drawing's so shit that it can't recognize that it's meant to be the cartoon character.
That's amazing.
So, which is like a really funny way to like tell a joke through a gameplay mechanic, basically. Um, and yeah, so then she like when you start doing this to her webpage, she like updates the page and is like really really upset as well. She's like, like this is just like artwork, like it's not. And on her page as well, to not fully be on her side, she does have like full like gifs that are like definitely infringing as well, because she's basically made the page look like it's like devoted to it as well, and she's like added her own like things to it. But yeah, it's like it's already really interesting to me, this game, because it's just like it makes you feel bad and it's also really funny as well, and you're like, am I the bad guy as well? Like, I'm not doing the right thing here. It's kind of like the Papers, Please style thing, where it's like in Papers, Please, for those who don't know, you're like a border guard basically, and you have to look at passports and decide if they should enter Artstotska. And a lot of the time you're conflicted because you're like, I really want to help this person, but their documents are fucked, so I have to like turn them away. But like I really want to help them. I really, really want to help them because it's this grim, like dystopian, like Soviet thing, and they want to come here for a better life, and it's not going to be that much better, but it's going to be a bit better. So you want to like balance that, and then you also have to worry about like feeding your family and all that kind of thing. So you have to become the bad guy basically to like try to get by, and even then it's like not great. And so I was sort of to a lesser extent getting that kind of feeling from this, where it's like I'm doing like my job and like what I should be doing. Although it's kind of lame because you're like a volunteer, so it's like who gives a fuck. But then you're like, oh, I'm doing this, but it's like the wrong thing to do, but it's the right thing to do for me to get some Hypno coin. Hypno coin is the currency, and it's like full like cryptocurrency basically. Only even worse because it's like you can't even take it out of the operating system like at all. Like it's not even, you can't convert it to cash in like any way. So it's just like a totally pointless thing as far as I know. But yeah, it's a really cool game. It's a really interesting thing, and I want to play more. I'm glad that I was just like, forget it. Like this wasn't on my radar really. I'm just gonna go play it and see what it does. And I'm just like browsing websites and reading like so many are like poorly written, but like intentionally poorly written in ways that are funny. And you like learn about different people. There's one where there's like this teenager that's talks about how like rad a dude he is, and he's got like a web page where he's got like spinning like pistols basically on it, and he's got like those like really cringe like skeleton things with the flames
Dude,
and all of that. Yeah.
reminds me of making a website when I was in like middle school and high school. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
and he's just like talking about how rad he is, and he's like, don't, it's like the don't frick with me type thing. And yeah, it's just really fun to just like not know what you're getting into, and it's nice as well because it's this indie game, so you're also kind of like, that they can be a bit like wilder and like looser with what they do, right? Because it's not gone through like a million people to get approval. It's just like a few guys have just made it, right? A few guys and girls, presumably. I don't actually know the development team or their genders at all, but yeah, it's good so far. Again, I've not played much, probably like 30 minutes to an hour again, but I feel like I've got, even though I've played so little of those two games, I feel like I've gotten so much out of them already. I feel like they're quite complex as well, so it's kind of like needs some time to digest them, to understand them, and to know what they're going for. But I recommend both of them. They're both really, really interesting. And again, I think we talked before, kind of in the New Year's resolution stuff, but also before that. I've said like I've shifted my priorities to kind of wanting to play like really interesting stuff, like not just like going through the motions and being like the next big thing. Being like what's really like out there and weird and interesting and will like fill in like be like a completely new thing for me, because I
That,
feel like so many games are interchangeable, especially in a lot of the AAA space that I'm kind of like. I mean, some people are going to be like, "Oh, preach king," and some people are going to be like, "What the fuck are you talking about, idiot?" To that, based on how you feel about AAA versus indie and all of that. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of stuff out there that I just totally missed and is going to be ultimately, even if it's like bad, it's going to be really memorable in a way that, I don't know, a slightly better, like, safe game wouldn't be. So yeah, having a really good time with all
You
three of the games.
you've chosen an interesting time to do that because I think in the past year or two we've had kind of like a little bit of a drought in gaming, and right now the big stuff that's coming out is a little bit exciting and refreshing to be playing this stuff. At least that's my experience. Is like I'm excited for Hogwarts. I just played Dead Space Remake. Resident Evil 4 Remake is coming, and then Star Wars Jedi Survivor's coming, and like a lot of these new games that I'm like really actually excited for, which I haven't been last year. It was just kind of backlog, and finding those interesting games to fill that void. And as we go more into the future, and you were talking about how some of these games like they're interchangeable, but I think that that is super true. And as it continues and it gets worse and worse with these live game service, you see these like leaks of games, and it's like, look, this is the exact same screen as Fortnite or whatever. It's like copy paste, everything's the same. That's whenever I'm gonna start looking like more for like those indie experiences where it's unique and different, because these games all are becoming the same. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting you chose this time now.
Well, I did it last year as well, right?
Right.
Outer Wilds, Disco Elysium, Hollow Knight. I mean, they're not exactly
Yes.
hidden gems, right? I mean,
No.
everyone knows how great
Those
they
are
are,
critically
but,
acclaimed
but they are, but
amazingness.
they are stuff that I missed. That was, they're unique titles. So it isn't just that I've done it this year. I did it last year as well.
Right.
I mean, Pentiment was new, but I mean that's also a pretty unique game in terms of its style. So yeah, I mean, this also ties into the resolutions of like this is why Ubisoft are fucked, right? Because I've got these like interesting like niche titles, and then I've got like Dead Space, Hogwarts. Like I've got other AAA stuff to do that
Right.
Star Wars like all of that, right? Like that's like next on the agenda. So like Ubisoft are screwed because it's like they're getting knocked down like several rungs of the ladder essentially at this point. Also, I mean, I forgot to. I I don't like doing this. Well, okay, I do like doing this, but I like doing it because of Square Enix. So um, I was like, I'm done with them. They suck. And then Forspoken comes out, and everyone's like, it sucks. So I'm happy about that, of course. I mean, I'm not happy that the game's bad because, well, apparently bad. I've not played it, so I don't know if it's bad. It might actually be great. People
I'm
think that
skipping it.
the game's bad.
Yeah.
Generally, some people like it, but a lot of people think it's bad. For the game, it sucks. For Square Enix, it sucks, which means for me it's good. That's the through line here. Um, because yeah, I mean I don't like the I I talked before about how why they annoy me as a publisher, but one of the like biggest ones was how like badly they squandered like Deus Ex, how badly they just don't care about Tomb Raider apparently, which is really weird. But yeah, they just like don't care about IDOS. They don't care about IO Interactive and Hitman. They were like, get out of here. Don't care about Crystal Dynamics. And I thought those studios were great. I thought those franchises were great. I really wanted more from them. I mean, part of it's understandable. They weren't very commercially successful. Like, that sucks. But I mean, they were great games. So it's kind of like, then is it marketing or are they niche? I mean, and I don't have a problem with if they were like, okay, so Deus Ex is great, but people don't really want to play immersive sims, so let's lower the budget, and I'd be fine with that personally. But I still want more of those games, right? Like even if they're like, oh, the market's not very big, it doesn't matter what we do in terms of marketing, it doesn't matter, um, what we try to change, we should just do like this. I don't know, at a lower budget. I'd be fine with that. So yeah, I feel like I really was like annoyed at them, and then it's like I'm like, yes, this, this is good for me, because I think it would have been bad for me if, although it would have just made me more angry, but it would have been bad for me if they did still have those IP and those studios that I care about. But now that they're gone, it's like I don't like Square Enix can just go under, and I'm like, whatever, like I don't care. Whereas before, it's like, oh no, they've got these things that I care about, and it's like they'd have them like hostage. Basically, they like had like the gun to the head, and then it was like, oh, we need all these things that you don't care about to succeed. Otherwise, it's over for them. But we're not going to do anything with these hostages. So it was like this really bad situation. I'm over dramatizing it, obviously, for the sake of comedy, for people who
Right.
can't tell, because I'm not doing like a funny voice or whatever. But I'm not being fully
Makes you look better.
about my feelings. But yeah, so very happy about. I mean, Ubisoft have been having a bad time too recently, which is also great.
I feel like it's been a long time since the Ubisoft game came out.
Yeah, it's been. I thought you were going to say it's been a long time since Ubisoft have been having a good time, which.
Oh, that's true too.
True. But no, there's like the whole Skull and Bones, Prince of Persia disasters, right? They cancelled their live service. Well, not cancelled, they shut down some of their live service stuff, I think, or whatever. Yeah. So, I'm very happy about how it's all turned out so far.
All right. Are you ready to talk about the topic on the table?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Okay, so this goes back to what you were talking about, where that hi-fi shadow dropped, and the day that it did, I reached out to you and I was like, can you believe this? Like, are you going to play it? And that brought up the conversation of like spontaneous gaming, which is not something I do. I mean, from the very get-go of this podcast, I started talking about how Hogwarts is loaded up on my console and I'm waiting for it. Like, I planned this out. I usually plan out my games, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to play this next, and I know what I'm going to do next. And then when these games shadow drop, and it's like, how likely are you to just pick that game up and play that day? Because it is a super exciting thing. But for me, it's like, oh, that's awesome that it's out. Now I got to schedule it in. It's like, when am I going to play this game? Because it's not something that I can just, it's not like a movie, I don't know. It's hard to explain with that. But how do you go about shadow drops?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because the planning aspect, I feel, has more of an effect when I know I have a lot of time. That makes sense? Like, if I'm like,
definitely.
Okay, so I've got like 2 weeks or something, or like I've got like a weekend. This weekend I'm going to do this. Like then it makes more sense. Whereas if it's just like I only have like moments, it's almost like there's not enough time to, because you get that, well, I do at least, what's it, like analysis paralysis, right? Where you're like, I want to plan it out, right? I want to plan it out. But then you spend like 2 hours planning it out and you're like, what the fuck? I've got no time now. So it's like, why did I plan this out? What was the point? So I feel like that happens to me. So then it becomes something where I'm more spontaneous, I think, when I have little time, or like when I was feeling ill as well, where I was like, I just need something simple, and it has to be like something that I can just get to quickly. So yeah, I think it depends, but normally I used to like planning it out. I think I started an Excel thing where I just wanted to like put every like backlog game on there. I actually wanted to make, this is super nerdy, I wanted to make in the Excel spreadsheet, I had like a bunch of parameters as well, and it was something like critic score, user score, like have I started it before, like, and then I think I had like a ranking, and I had it color coded as well. Like it was like for like critic score, it was like between 90 and 100, it was like green, and for like I don't know, or whatever. And then I also had like based on like the length or like difficulty to like beat, or like it was something to do with like achievements where it was like is the limiting factor like length, difficulty, or neither? So it would be like, like if it's like a 120-hour game and the achievement so like 5 out of 10 difficult, then it's like the length that's the thing that will hold you back from completion. Or
Yeah.
is it 8 out of 10 but it difficulty, but it's like 8 hours, so it's like, okay, so then it's the difficulty that's the limiting factor, or whatever. So I had like a ranking based on like all of these, and then I could like arrange the list based on those, basically. And I was making it, and then it was like it was taking way too long to make it and to get all of
I
these
was just thinking
parameters
that.
sorted. And it
It's
was
like,
it was a cool idea. I think I might return to it at some point. It'd be cool to get like maybe even like a do some like programming, get like a script done to order it, or to like, I don't know, fucking plot it on a graph or
yeah, dude, you
something.
gotta
Like,
post that too, because like I'll read it. Like that's crazy. That's so much in depth. No wonder you were like, it's gonna take hours to figure this out. Because like when I think back to like 2017 to about 2019, I was basically just getting on PSN profiles and looking at trophy games that I had like, like you were saying, you organize it and it's like, have I started this game? I had all these games on my profile. I didn't have to buy them. They're just on my account. And it's like, why not revisit these? Like, why not go back and trophy hunt them?
yeah,
And
yeah. The
so I
fact
did that, you know?
the fact that I'd started them was actually like a bonus, right? Like, I was like, if I've started it, I should go back and finish it. Was kind of like my idea. But also, it was like the reason I had to add like so many parameters is because, again, it's like this idea of like the fact that I've started it alone isn't going to make me want to most play it. Like, I don't know. I felt like the biggest one was probably like the critical stuff, maybe, but specifically for like when a game's like a 95 or something, or like a
Yeah.
like a 93, like, or something, like, where it's like, okay, so like I should at least experience this, probably, because it's like, I don't know. I don't really feel that way now. Maybe I did then for a bit, but it depends. I think it's tough because part of me is like you should experience what people consider to be the best games of all time, but I feel like the aggregate scores, they tend to favor things that are more safe as well at that point, because it's like Metacritic and OpenCritic especially, it's like if the game's really risky, all it takes is to like piss off a couple of critics enough to give it like a 6 out of 10, and then you're just like
Mhm.
fucked, right? Like, you're not going to get like a 98 at that point, right? Or like a 95. Like, and that kind of sucks in a way for design, I feel like. So it's not like a brilliant metric there either, but I mean, the whole point of this is the understanding, the implicit understanding that no metric is actually good enough on its own, and that it's more complicated than that. But
Right.
yeah, so I
And
feel like I'm more spur of the moment now, but I don't know, I've also gone more into the planning thing as well. So I've kind of gone in both directions at the same time.
I would say I have too. I balanced out because I mean, I was exclusively playing. I had some new releases, but like I was, as soon as I finished it and I platinumed it, I would move in. I would look at my list, go down on through my list, and I'd be like, oh, that game is at a 4%, and I own it. I'm gonna play it. I don't do that anymore. Like anything that's on my profile, I'm not looking back at it. It's like, what do I want to play, and like what am I going to play? So like, I mean, look at what happened in January. The, Witcher 3 got like a update, and I'm like, that's my favorite game, so I'm gonna play it. Like that's how it happened, and it's just like it as I finish that, I'm like, oh, the next game coming out is Dead Space. Well, I'm gonna play that, and then after Dead Space, I'm like, I can't believe how well it worked out. But I even in December, I did purchase Callisto, and I'm like, it's there. I'm gonna play that, but it's just fitting it in to these times. And like, I have usually about a span of like 3 to 5 games that I want to play at a time. And then I choose from those 3 to 5 games. And then those will change out. Sometimes like some of them just get backlogged. They just like, get thrown onto the backlog, and then they're just there. Like for if I ever catch up. And like, again, spontaneous, like day one shadow drops. I don't think I've ever had one that I've been like, yeah, I'm going to go do that right now. Like, I have games that I want to play at this moment, and those shadow drop games are not usually on that list unless they were like it had to have been something special. Witcher 4 shadow drops. Oh, there's nothing else I'm gonna play. You know what I mean? Like something very very big. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Shadow drops for me. So Hi-Fi Rush, obviously. But I didn't play that. Well, it was the next thing I played, but I didn't play it immediately. But that was because I was too busy. Like it wasn't.
Busy, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, I could play this, but no, it was like I will play this next. The other one for me is Apex Legends. That was basically a shadow drop. I don't think it. I think it was right. It was very close to one, if not like it was like announced and it came out like right after, like the same week, right? So yeah, that for me was immediate because I remember being so hyped because I love Titanfall 2. So I was like, it like came out and I remember just being like convincing friends just to be like, hey, this is out. It's like this new like battle royale. Like, what the fuck? There's like nothing about it online, and so I'm downloading it. Please download it and play it with me. I'm a loser, like that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, and I distinctly remember that, and then it being like amazing, like loving it like so much. So for me, I feel like it's worked out pretty well both of the times. But it's so, like we said earlier, shadow dropping itself is so uncommon that it's kind of
Yeah.
like, I don't know, you don't have a big enough sample size, I guess. At least I feel like I don't.
Yeah, I don't really either because it's either a game that I miss off my radar or it's not something I'm super interested in. It just comes out of nowhere. But Tango is like a great studio, so their shadow drop was actually like I said, I reached out to you. I was like, this is freaking incredible. Like, what? Where did it come from? And like that was really exciting, but still haven't played it and I might play it, again, like I said, between some other games, but I didn't see it coming. But the thing is, like, I also planned to play Forspoken, and then when it wasn't reviewed very well, and then friends are like, it's not good. I'm like, well, I'm not probably gonna play that game, and that's whenever I can insert a game like a Shadow Drop, like into another slot where something else I would have played is not a contender anymore, and so it's just that's just how it is. I don't know if that's a trophy hunter, achievement hunter type of thing, but it just doesn't work into how I play games, I guess, and how my brain works. But yeah, that's it. Do you want to do the trophy and achievement of the week?
Yeah, sure. So you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Cool. So I've gone for Perfecta Parrier in Hi-Fi Rush. So there's an achievement for perfect parry, and then there's like Perfecta, like more than perfect, which obviously doesn't make sense. But yeah, it's to successfully parry with perfect timing 200 times. And I
Whoa.
picked it because I really like parry mechanics in games. I think it's really cool because usually it has that risk reward, which has been the theme of this episode, I guess, of like you you like could dodge, and usually the window on dodging is much more generous, or like you could block. Don't think yeah, don't know. You could block. So I'm thinking of like Dark Souls typically, but you could block, and the timing on that is more generous. So you've got like blocking. Typically, the timing is very very generous. You can block like way in advance. Dodging, you have to dodge. Well, it depends on how good the tracking is on the enemy's attack, or how annoying the tracking is on the enemy's attack. But usually with the dodge, you either have to dodge. The tracking isn't very good. You don't have to dodge with such great timing. If the tracking is amazing, you have to dodge where the invincibility frames overlap with the damage frames of the attack completely. So the timing is can be very tight then. But then a parry is usually like even tighter, and a lot of the time in a lot of these types of games, you can't parry every single type of attack as well, which makes it even more fraught with danger. Because if you misread what the type of attack is and you try and parry it, you're just opening yourself up to get hit, even if your timing's correct and the timing's really tight. So I love parrying because it's like this ultimate mastery of combat in a lot of video games. Like it's just become a thing for like the greatest like casual flex without going into like super like speed run like exploit shit basically.
Yeah.
um yeah, so I just really like parry mechanics in games, so I just thought I'd use this as an excuse to talk about it. Looking forward to parrying. I like when I don't know if I like when parries have like perfect timing. You know where you can parry, but you can do like a you can parry and you can do like an okay parry, or you can parry and you can do a perfect parry. I kind of
Right.
like I kind of like games where it's either like perfect or nothing. Like it's like it doesn't work or you've done it perfectly. Because I feel like then that makes the parry feel like incredible when you do it. Like you're like, yes, like this is like so good because I had this such like minuscule window. Because I feel like I never feel good when I do a parry and it's like, yeah, you did like a shit parry, but it's still like a parry, right? Like I feel like you don't feel the same. You kind of like, oh well, I might as well have just like fucked it up, like whatever, right? It doesn't feel good. Dark Souls and Elden Ring have this like half parry thing where like you take like half damage from the attack if you've done like a half parry, and it never feels good. It's like it feels like a consolation prize, but you still feel like a dunce. You still feel like a complete like chump for doing it. So I feel like I prefer when it's just like all or nothing, but still love parry mechanics in games, and I'm glad this game has one.
Yeah, dude, you've reminded me of a couple different parry mechanics, and it like sparked my mind because one of the ones that I think of the most is Kena Bridge of Spirits. In that game, the window, at least around launch, was tight. Very, very tight. And beating the game on the hardest difficulty was like one of the hardest games that I had done in a long, long time. Like, man, that window was so tight. But when you did get it, it was like, oh yeah. And then you get like 3 in a row and it's like, God damn, I'm freaking on fire. I'm like, I haven't done this. I'm further than I ever been in this boss because I have nailed these parry windows. But if you don't, you get totally wrecked.
Yeah, and I
And it's just like,
I love when the reward's like huge as well. Like the risk is
oh,
huge and
dude,
the reward. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it'll
great.
knock them
It's
off
so good.
balance, and then you're just open to attack a couple times, and you're like, I just can't mess up my parry. I just can't. You know, it's so fun. And then in The Witcher, there's a couple. It doesn't indicate like it does in Kena, where it's like a red or a yellow indicator. But in Witcher, there's like monsters that when you're fighting them, like if you try to block, they will stun you for a second. They'll hit you, and then you'll just be like, "Oh, I'm dazed. I can't really move. I'm stuck because you can't block their attacks." But if you parry perfectly, the Witcher will take a step back and do a nice little like dance with his blade where he like cuts them and then steps back, and it's just like only if you like get that in perfect timing will you get that. Otherwise, you're stunned. And so it's really, really cool to just like play with that and see which enemies and what attacks you can do that with and which ones you can't, because there's some where you just got to get out of the way, but then there's some that you can really play with it. But yeah, I have to agree, parrying is really a cool mechanic in games. So great choice, dude, great choice. And it's awesome that you picked it from a game that you played this week, because I also picked from Dead Space, and I just wanted to talk about the telekinesis because this trophy is called Raising the Stakes, and it's just pinning an enemy to the wall. And it is so awesome. And the animation and the ragdoll and like everything around it is so awesome, because you'll just like take something like a spike off the wall, or maybe you take a necromorph's like spike off their body, off of like a dead one's body, and then you just like launch it at one, and then they just like kind of fly just like super fast into the wall, and they're like ragdolled. But then you'll see like ammo pop out of their body, so it's like ammo stays still in the air as the freaking necromorph is being just pinned to the wall. So I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
dude,
it's
I have
so
to
good.
talk about
It's like
it's
some
so good.
superhero shit. It's
Dude,
awesome.
it's amazing. I love it so much. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely like a trophy that when I got it, I was like, oh, that's awesome. This is such a moment. So yeah, dude, had to talk about that. Had to.
Yeah, I love. I mean, the telekinesis is so fantastic, and it's just like even like the tension of like scrambling to throw stuff as well.
Oh
Sometimes there's a
yeah.
bunch of objects and you fucking pick up the wrong one, because if you don't pick up like an explosive or like a spike of some sort, either like a limb or whatever, um, it's like it's not going to do any damage. Basically, like if you throw anything else, it's just not going to do anything. Like you
No, I'm
throw like
panicking and I'm trying to pick something up and it pulls out a coffee mug and I throw a coffee mug. It's just like, God damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
God damn it.
And you're like, and it, it's getting closer to you as you do it. Yeah, it's such like it's so good.
Dude, it also breaks immersion. There's sometimes where I'm in a room and I'm looking at this thing and there's this corpse and then there's like a audio log next to the corpse and it's like, oh, that's the person who left the audio log, and I'm picking up the dead body and like throwing it. But it's just like, it's such a great game, dude. It's so good. But yeah. Any final thoughts, AJ?
Yeah, I'm really interested to like see how Hogwarts is received and Star Wars as well. God, I don't know. I feel like that Star Wars game has so much potential. Jedi Fallen Order was good, but it was like, I mean, it was really good, but it was like Respawn's
Jack of all
first
trades.
attempt.
It felt like a jack of all trades and master of none. That's kind of how it felt to me.
Yeah, it's such an interesting game, and I feel like if they, I mean, it really depends on what they do with it, but if they like really, I mean, it sounds stupid. It sounds like something you say about any game, but it's like if they lean into the stuff that works, like it could like really really work. It feels like there's so much. It's weird because it's like a really good game, but it also feels like there's so much room for improvement at the same time.
Yes.
So I'm really interested in that, and I'm interested in Hogwarts because, again, I mean, like, yeah, it's out there. It's been so long since a Harry Potter game that's been interesting. So, yeah, cool stuff. So much cool stuff has come out and is coming out. Really exciting.
It is really exciting, and I am curious how Hogwarts will be, because I'm not going to sit here and say I'm like the biggest Harry Potter fan, but last year I binged all the movies for the first time ever, and I've been to Universal Studios in Florida, and I went to the Wizarding World like amusement park like type thing. And, I rode the Hogwarts Express. I walked through like a hologram wall. I did a whole bunch of cool shit, like walked around. I bought Ron's wand and I like went around the park and I like made attractions like explode and, books fall off shelves. And like, I was just, having a damn good time. And I really enjoy the world. But if you ask me like a certain character, what happened to him, I'm like, yeah, I don't know, cause like I'm not the biggest fan, but it doesn't change that I'm excited to make my own student and then be like exploring the secrets of Hogwarts. Like tonight, that's like what I'm so excited about. And
Nice.
my school,
Such an interesting place.
It really is. And my school, after taking the quiz for the Wizarding World website, is like I'm in Gryffindor, so that's the school that I'll be for.
Boring.
And no,
Yeah, obviously boring.
Dude, the best students graduate from Gryffindor. What are you saying? Boring? Freaking peak. That's what it is.
It's not,
but
it's not interesting.
and then the Patronus of mine is a gray squirrel, which totally matches my personality 100% because I'm a crackhead. And then my wand is hazel with a dragon core in it. So if I get to customize that stuff, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it exactly how the website said.
Okay, nice.
And it's like I'm really really looking forward to this game. But those are my final thoughts. So that's it. Everybody, thanks for listening. Peace out and happy hunting.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Complete Edition. If you like the content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/completion club. If you have any questions or would like to reach us, email completionclub@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Complete Edition.